Hello. Hello everyone, and welcome to the first ever Carbon Removals Pavilion at a COP. Very, very exciting time. And we are here doing the first ever session at the first ever Pavilion at COP. And we are all extremely pleased to be here. And I am going to hand straight over to Tal Katz from Carbon Blue, who is leading this first session. If you're joining us live on YouTube, welcome, and in person, welcome as well.
Okay, it's been a rough start. We organized everything so we can do it, but we always pull through. Yeah, we always pull through. And thank you very much for being with us here. And we're going to start the first panel, all CDR paths lead to net zero. So just to start things off, I'm going to introduce our wonderful panel. Robert, can you hear us? Maybe not. Okay. We'll start with who's here. So we have Tito. Tito is the co-founder and CEO of Airminers. He will tell you about Airminers in a second. Kara is an expert scientific advisor. She's advising the leading bodies that I know of and admire in the CDR sphere, and just a leading scientist doing breakthrough stuff. And Marian has joined us now from Remove. Is the founder of Remove, also doing great work in the sphere. And Robert, I see that you can hear us now. Robert, the sound is coming from here. Okay, so Robert, we can hear you now, but we will fix the sound in a second. And if that doesn't happen, then we'll just continue the panel as it is. Because of the local issues, we cannot really do anything more about it. But I'll just introduce Robert. So Robert co-founded CDR FYI, the best source of data on carbon ever. And he's also a director in Milky Wire. So we're going to try to work out the sound real quick. And Robert, we're trying you again. Can you hear us? And we can hear you great. Yeah. We can hear you. If you can talk as loud as you can, then that would be great. So maybe you want to join us in the first rows? I will ask Chris in a second. Okay, so we're going to start. We're here to talk about carbon removal. Before we dive into the pathways with all the amazing professionals here, I cannot imagine a better panel for that. I just want to give a quick reminder of why do we need to remove carbon and what it actually is. So we cannot reach net zero, we cannot reach our climate sustainable goals without removing carbon. It does not replace anything else, it's a part of the puzzle. According to the IPCC, 20% of the emissions in 2050 will need to be removed by carbon removal. We cannot reduce everything we do. Hard to abate industries, it can be shipping, it can be transportation through air, and many other industries. So today, we can slow down, as the industry scales up, we can slow down climate change and reduce the greenhouse gases that are already emitted. In 2050, it will enable us to reach net zero. It is the net in net zero, and not just zero by itself. And in the future, we want to reverse our climate. We want to, and we believe that we can create a capacity for us to bring back the climate to a more stable way. And it's all about the carbon cycle here. The carbon cycle, you can see here, there are carbon sinks, there are carbon sources, so carbon that is going up to the air from natural wildfires, it can be from volcano eruptions. So this is just the simple things that do exist. Nature knows how to regulate itself. We in the Industrial Revolution contributed much more carbon. We took the fossil fuels rich with carbon and emitted them. Now we understand that this is destabilizing our climate, and we will create the pathways to bring it back and restore the carbon cycle in the long term. How does it look like? So we have conventional mitigation techniques, 80%. It's very important to go to renewable energies, to do everything we can to replace all of the emitting processes. And the 20 remaining percent, you can see in 2050, if you look at the graph, the cyan area, okay, it's around 10 gigatons. We will have 10 gigatons remaining that we need to remove actively. And this is where carbon removal kicks in and really brings us to zero. So that's just to start off, and now we're gonna dive deeper and to a more interesting thing. So this is our panel, as I mentioned before, and I will let our panelists maybe say a few words about themselves and elaborate a bit more.
Hey everybody, my name is Tito Jankowski. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Air Miners. We're best known as an accelerator for startup companies that are working on carbon removal. We've had 250 companies graduate from our program, and they're all over the world working on different ways to remove carbon from the sky. And I am thrilled to be here at the first ever carbon removal pavilion. I'll hand over to our next panelist.
Better? Yes. Okay. My name is Caroline Mello. I'm apparently not speaking loudly enough. Okay, that's I'm a scientist by training. I spent most of my career in academic science, and for the last 6 years I've been focused on carbon removal, covering multiple technologies, primarily from the non-profit sector. Hand it over to Marian.
Yeah, hi. Thanks everyone. My name is Marian. I run Remove. We're a non-profit working with removal entrepreneurs in Europe, India, Africa, and Latin as well. And I also wrote this book called Race to Zero, which is on carbon removal. And I'm a bit of a stand-in here for Robert in case things don't pan out. So it's a bit of a Schrödinger's cat situation. I'm not Robert, but I'm also not Robert. Thank you so much. Robert, let's try your end.
I think we can somehow manage. We'll try it. So speak, and maybe I'll also get the microphone. Okay, so Robert, I think we'll say much thanks because you constructed the panel on all the professional materials here, but we'll take it from here. We tried. Thank you very much, and we'll see you on the next one. Yeah, I think so. I think we'll go for that. Okay. Thank you, Robert.
as with a lot of things, a bit of a rocky start here, but we're managing. I guess everyone here is in the lane. So I'm going to be Robert for the next couple of minutes, and just I think the three of us are going to give you guys a bit of an idea about the various pathways. That's what we call sort of the methods that exist to take carbon out of the atmosphere and store away for various amounts of time. And in general, you can distinguish the pathways between ways to capture the carbon and ways to store it. And then there's various multiplication of that, as you can see here on the screen. Typically, to capture it, we have three ways to do it. We can use photosynthesis, the way that nature has been capturing carbon to fuel its growth and growth of the plants for, well, since it's existed. We have geochemical ways, which Cara is going to talk about. We also have technical ways. And once we have captured that carbon, of course, we want to keep it where it is and not let it re-emit to the atmosphere, because that's just where it's causing harm. And we have various ways of doing that, ensuring that it doesn't. I will, in the next couple of slides, focus on this one mechanism that really nature has blessed us with. To be honest, the others nature has also blessed us with, but this one in particular, where through photosynthesis, it captures carbon off the atmosphere. And then there's different ways of doing that. Exactly. One of the ways is to store the carbon in soil, right? That's what is known as organic soil carbon storage. And here we typically think about regenerative agriculture, right? Agriculture sector in general, where you can use different practices, different from the ones that conventional agriculture is deploying, to make sure that the soil isn't disturbed as much. For instance, not using tilling or using cover crops, all ways that enhance the ability of the soil to take up carbon and then store it. Now, when we now are going to go through the various methods, we're not pitting them against each other, but we're considering the advantages and disadvantages, the features of those methods. And that's also what we're going to do on the next slide when we look now at organic soil carbon. I already mentioned we try to capture the carbon to store it in as long a way as possible, a way of re-emitting into the atmosphere. That is what we in the field call durability, or the durability of carbon storage. So in the case of soil carbon, we would say that is rather low. Why is it low? Because the risk of reversal, i.e. carbon coming back out of the soil again, is rather high. Just imagine if a piece of land is sold to another farmer and that farmer starts tilling it. In that moment, the carbon is re-emitted, and that's why the storage, we consider it low durability. Additionality is the question of, would this activity have happened if we had financed it another way? So is it deliberate? And in this case, we would say it's medium. Why medium? Because we are seeing all around the globe already policies being put into place that force this activity or incentivize this activity. So if, for instance, the EU policy for agriculture incentivizes these kind of practices, then the additionality would be low because farmers are doing it anyways, right? And we wouldn't need to finance it through another way. There's various other features that we can think to. I'm not going to go through all of them. I think one maybe important feature to figure out is, while we're doing this for the benefit of taking carbon out of the atmosphere, basically all of these methods have what we know as co-benefits. So they have very, very positive effects on things that are not necessarily carbon focused. So when you think about soil, these practices typically increase yields and they increase the ability of the soil to restore itself. So here we would say this practice has high co-benefits. The practice itself is rather low to medium mature. Why? Because we somehow need to verify that the carbon is actually taken out and stays there. That is not simple. If you think about the large areas of land that agriculture is being deployed on, trying to figure out whether on this 1 acre carbon has been stored or not is difficult. There are ways of doing it, we're getting there, but in comparison to others, other methods, it's rather low. All right, the second thing, and probably the one that comes to mind for the first if you think about carbon removal, is planting trees, right? Trees are exceptionally good at capturing carbon and storing it in the roots, in the trunk, and in the leaves, and everything else. There's various ways of doing this. You can either plant trees where there weren't any trees before, that's afforestation. You can also replant trees where there used to be trees, that's called reforestation. You can combine trees into agricultural deployments, that's known as agroforestry. You can also just take a piece of land and let it rewild itself. That is what is known natural reforestation. And improved forest lands is how we manage our forests that we have already. Again, looking at the various features, I don't want to look at all of them. In this case, I think what is very relevant is the durability aspect. Because while trees live for tens to hundreds of years, there is, and unfortunately that risk increases with climate change, the risk of the reversal because, for instance, forest fires or floods or bark beetles or other pesticides.
I would even want to ask the audience, do you know a certain area that you loved, that you liked that burned down last summer or the summer before? I mean, I remember a trip to Sicily myself. It was one of the most beautiful lush green places. Just the next summer, I see them up, flames all over, and it's just like, I know that I can come back maybe tens of years and it will be the same, but it's getting worse and worse. So I think that's I guess the way to go.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Hello, I'm Noura Hanna. I work for Solidaridad, organization for farmers. Not only is it due to natural disaster, but also represent coffee. And you know that the coffee production areas is expected that 50% will not be available anymore in the coming, to 2030, not even a decade time, if we continue at this rate. And especially in the forest area where sometimes coffee is grown in agroforestry. So this is going extremely fast. So sometimes, yes, I will visit a coffee growing region in Kenya or in Ethiopia, and 2 years later it's not there anymore. It's buildings or something else.
Thanks for the comment. I think it's a very important one, right? The connection of agriculture in general and how it impacts forests through deforestation, and then not allowing, for instance, us to reforest, especially when you're in the Amazon, right? Especially something I think that's top of mind for a lot of people. Let's move on also in the light of time. Biochar. So up until now, we said we have photosynthesis that captures carbon, and then we more or less let it be stored in nature. Now, biochar is a case where we as humans intervene a bit more. Namely, we take biomass, like waste biomass. So think about forest fires, where oftentimes is some residue left. Think about a lot of processing of cocoa, of coffee, as you mentioned, of coconuts, of sugarcane. Right? We can't use all parts of those plants, and then what do we do with the rest? In a large part of the world, unfortunately, is just being left there to rot, which causes emissions yet again. And it sort of robs us of this amazing job that nature has already done. It has already captured the carbon. So let's just make sure we keep it stored away. And biochar is a way to do that. How do we do it? We take this waste biochar, we put it into a process what is known as pyrolysis. Essentially, we burn it without the existence of oxygen. And that creates a sort of product that is almost like the charcoal that you use when you do barbecue. Of course, when you barbecue, then it's going to burn and the CO2 is re-emitted again. But this biochar, especially if it's done in sort of a more industrialized way, it has a lot of benefits. Not only does it store the carbon for a long time, but also, if we use it in agriculture, it has very, very positive benefits on soils, increased yields, because it's almost like a sponge. It is extremely good at retaining water and other nutrients, and it's also good for the soil microbiome. That's why biochar is really, it's a solution that's been seen quite some uptake in carbon, both for the reason that it is great at capturing carbon and storing it for a long time, but also because it has a lot of good benefits for the economic element. Especially in the global south, biochar can be a solution that is very scalable and has potential for mega, if not gigatons. And it is available today. So if you look at maturity, you can buy good biochar pyrolysis units off the shelf right now. And here in the audience, we're seeing some biochar players as well that know very well how to operate these medium to really large plants all around the globe.
I can also say that as a fertilizer. Sustainable fertilizers, if you look at how you make fertilizer today, it has emissions. If you create a fertilizer that it's not only good for the crops, it captures carbon in its process. It's the best methods we can apply to CDR, and the fact that it's now scaled out today, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I continually seeing that they're sold out of carbon credits. I'm not in that market, I mean, I'm operating in a different market, but I see the hype around it because it's now, it's happening, and we can take it anywhere we want.
Thank you. I'm Lucia from the International Biochar Initiative. Speak up, okay. Thank you. No, just comment on that. That biochar is not a fertilizer, it's a soil amendment. And it works much better when it works together with fertilizers. Whether they are organic or inorganic, but metadata studies shows that the yield increased by 22% more if fertilizers are used together with biochar. So that's it.
Thank you for the correction. All right, very similar process. We take the biomass, we put it into pyrolysis. This time the pyrolysis is slightly different because the temperatures are higher. And what this yields us with is not a biochar, but it yields us with a really thick oil that almost looks like crude oil, which we can take and store in the ground. This is a more straightforward process in the sense that we really do it for the sake of carbon removal, right? It doesn't have a lot of co-benefits in terms of fertilizing or aiding the fertilizers in the ground, but really we take that biomass, we put it in the ground again, as we have done with crude oil. There is one specific company that is doing this Charm Industrial in the US. The durability of this is very, very high because we store it on the ground, and you can think of it almost as putting crude oil back in the ground. It's also been there for millennia. We can deploy today. The costs are rather high also because the co-benefits are rather low. Right? There's no real reason to do this except for the point of doing carbon removal. Right, similar process. We don't take the biomass and put it, turn it into bio-oil, but we just store it on the ground in environments where it doesn't decay. Right? So think about peatlands, for instance. Why doesn't the biomass decay there? Because there's no oxygen. We do the same. We can very simply just dig a large hole, line it with certain materials that keep oxygen out, and then close it off. Make sure no oxygen comes in. And the biomass in there will not decay. We of course need to make sure that it doesn't. We need to make sure that it's verified. But there's another way of just taking biomass and storing it away, increasing the durability of that biomass. Here again, the co-benefits are rather low. We're really just doing this for the pure purpose of carbon removal.
Can you hear me? Yeah. No, sometimes there are benefits to directly storing biomass. So for example, one of the companies that won the X Prize, they're called Vulcan, they take biomass from waste biomass, agriculture, or from waste processing facilities. And sometimes that waste can be distributed back on lands. But increasingly there are plastics inside, there's PFAS. And so more and more, I think the UK is even, I'm going to get this wrong, they might be considering banning or not allowing such waste to be spread back on land because it's full of things that we don't want in our food. And so sometimes the best way to get rid of it is just to directly store it somewhere where it's not going to affect anything. So sometimes we're finding more and more co-benefits for